Hey Internet, welcome to another episode of Awkward Gamer. This time I want to do something a little different. I've been watching a lot of collection videos on the internet lately. A bunch of the big names have all done it. James Rolfe, Mike Matei, Metal Jesus Rocks, Pat the NES Punk, all of them. And I figured I have a sizable collection and some interesting pieces that might be fun to talk about. And I've gotten a few questions anyway about where or how I get various things, so I thought I'd give you a quick rundown. I'm not going to go through every game, that would take hours, but just some of the highlights and show you what I have. So let's get started. Oh look!
A sword.
Alright, so first we have the consoles themselves. Giant ass TV, 55-inch I think. That's not the important part. The important part is all this stuff. First off, as you can see, I actually have two Xbox Ones. Unfortunately, Microsoft does this dick thing where you have to install the games on the consoles themselves. They take up a lot of space, so this is the new Forza Edition, 1 terabyte, blah blah blah. That's what I do most of my games on. And the older 500 gig one there is actually specifically just for Rock Band, which comes out soon, and I cannot wait for. With all the DLC and everything for that game, it's going to need its own drive anyway, so I figured two birds, one stone, let's get the special edition and let's give it the space it needs. Nextly, the 360, PS4 you're all familiar with. More importantly, into the more fun things, the Retron 5, I did the video earlier, and as I go along, if I've covered something, there will be a link somewhere on the screen. It's easier to keep that in, A, because it does HDMI, B, it covers a lot of different consoles all at once, so I don't have to switch cords as much, have as much stuff hooked up all at the same time. I've also got the Wii U, the Wii, which is actually going to get swapped out in favor of my PS3, because the Wii U is backward compatible, PS4 is not. The PS2, which I use exclusively for DDR, that's what this box goes to, is the big metal arcade pad I have for it. And then finally, this 360 is actually the European one. I have a couple exclusive import games like Iron Sky, Arcana Heart 3, and a few other games that a buddy of mine over in Europe was nice enough to send over to me. So he also sent me a console that I can play them on, and it happens to be the Resident Evil Edition one. Also the Ouya up here. I'll do a video on this at some point. Really fun little homemade kind of console. It's $99, all the games are download only, they're almost all indie titles. A lot of really fun, cool stuff on there. Most of the games are free or really cheap. Highly recommended if you don't have it. And that's all for the consoles that are hooked up right now. This stand, in case you're wondering, is just a cheap little thing I actually built myself with the help of a friend. Took us maybe 2 hours to cut and assemble everything, cost less than $100 for materials. And definitely the easiest way to handle all the consoles. Most of the cords are hidden behind the thing, so there's not cords everywhere. Little holes drilled in the back. It works out. There's a couple HDMI switchers, which allows me to have everything hooked up all at once. Highly recommend those too. They're cheap and it saves a lot of time. But let me move on to the other consoles. First, I actually have, obviously these are all the consoles that aren't hooked up, but I have Zelda Edition, 64, and NES. Neither of these are licensed. These are both homemade things that someone made, and I think this one actually came from Etsy. But I just thought they looked really awesome. Zelda's my favorite franchise, so I had to get them. And surprisingly, these things go for a lot of money. Even though it's just someone in his house with a can of spray paint, you could expect to spend probably around $100 for one of these kind of things. So keep that in mind if you're looking. They're spendy. But on to all the rest of it. This is all the stuff that's not hooked up. It all works. Everything's fine. It's just I only have X amount of space, and these don't get played as frequently. I've got the 3DO up here, the TurboGrafx next to it. Both kind of lesser-known consoles, but actually both really good. I've got some great games on both of them. One of several 2600s I have lying around. I also have the other two Ataris in here somewhere. Super Nintendo, two of my way too many Genesis consoles. The only console here that doesn't function, actually, is a really old PlayStation PS1. This was like the third edition they did. It's the one where you can hook up to a little laptop screen and travel with it, and portable PlayStation. Why they thought it was a good idea to have a portable disc-based system, I have no idea, but there it is. Down here we have the traditional PlayStations. These are the ones you're all familiar with. All three versions of the Genesis. Way too many of these giant Xbox brick things. One of two ColecoVisions. This is actually a fun console I was a big fan of. Came out around the same time as like the Atari, the Intellivision, that kind of stuff. But it wasn't necessarily as popular. It had these little number pads instead of just your traditional button. Some games had overlays for them so that they had different graphics. The buttons would mean different things depending on the game. Really fun console. Definitely worth playing. If you like the retro kind of stuff, that's one to have. Also, the PS3, unfortunately, it's the newer cheap one with this crap sliding thing, and it's made out of a really cheap feeling plastic. The console works fine, it feels cheap, really. Down here we have the horribly, obnoxiously oversized Atari 5200. Unlike the 7800, that was not backward compatible with the games from the previous model, and also that console is way bigger than it has any right being. Next to that, the Virtual Boy, which does work, however, the controller does not, so I can't really use it until I find a new one. Over here, it gets a little more fun. We've got a couple of the Atari 7800s. Those were the next step from the 52. They went back to the old size games. It played the ones from the 2600. And it had slight upgrades, but also still kept the same controller, which was nice. Same controller as actually the 3DO, the Laseractive, the Genesis, the Atari 2600, and many other consoles. It was kind of fun that it was really universal back then. You could take one controller and use it in any console you wanted, except Nintendo. Above those, we have the two different Master Systems I have. There's a third one in the box somewhere, but these are the two I actually play. As you can see, one's a little older and in slightly rougher shape than the other, which is much newer and cleaner. But luckily, they both work fine, so yay for that. 64, the second version of the Super Nintendo, same as the first. Everything works the same. It's just a little smaller, a little lighter. They didn't really change anything else. Unlike the NES, which had a second edition that actually took away stereo sound and took away the ability to use the AV cables and instead just have the RF. So, actually, the second edition of that was not good. But Super Nintendo was cool. Dreamcast, everyone knows and loves that. It was probably the last, well, it was the last console Sega did. Honestly, I think it was good. A lot of people either loved or hated it. I'm of the former category. Had some really cool games like Space Channel, Crazy Taxi, the Sonic Adventure games. It was definitely worth playing. They're hard as hell to find now, so if you find one, definitely grab it, but good console. Next to that is the Saturn, which is one that more people seem to like. Above that is the giant monstrosity that is the Sega Genesis CD and 32X. It may look fun here, but what you can't see because I don't have it plugged in is all three of these units have their own separate giant adapter. There was no power supply internal in any of this. So you need an entire power strip just to power these, and it takes as much energy as your car. So while it was fun to play all the different games in one unit, it was just a giant obnoxious mess. Next to that is the GameCube with the wonderful, lovely Game Boy player. Until I got the Retron, this was probably one of my favorite things because anything from Game Boy, Game Boy Color, or GBA could be played on your TV. It was awesome. Much better than the little handheld screens and the infinite batteries you would kill trying to play a game. And then lastly is one of my other 360s. Once again, a special edition because when I see special edition anything, I want to buy it. The Kinect, which I used maybe twice. It was a good concept, but kind of sucked. And then finally, the lovely Oculus. The really cool 3D virtual reality, awesome, fun thing. I have the second dev kit. I think they're on the third or fourth one now, and it'll probably be available commercially within a year anyway. But at the time it wasn't, and I needed to play it, so that's what I got. Now I'll move on again. Okay, here, not necessarily consoles, just kind of random hardware stuff and odds and ends that I have. As you can see, a bunch of the various Lego and or Mega Bloks things. Minecraft, Halo, Warcraft. I know I'm a nerd, but who doesn't love Legos? And since they're video game themes, I kind of had to get them. These are the special edition little fight joystick things that were made for Super Smash Brothers. They're made to emulate the GameCube controller, but they're actually to use with the Wii U. Down here, just some special edition boxes from the various games, like the Rocksmith, the Resident Evil 5. As you can see, all the Skylanders and Disney Infinity stuff. My one laser active game is here because it's just the only place I could really fit it. There's a lot of like pre-order bonus stuff in here. This is actually from Story of Seasons. I have like an Assassin's Creed coin that came from the Loot Crate, various Amiibo armband, and as you go down further, you run into a lot more pre-order stuff. We have a lot of little figures like Prototype, Pokemon, Mega Man helmet. I have all manner of soundtracks for pretty much any game that's come out in the last decade. There's a whole pile of them here. I used to work at GameStop, and as much as I hate the store, and I'm sure all of you do too, the one benefit of working there is any unclaimed pre-orders or merchandise in general that either didn't sell or didn't go out with pre-ordered copies of games, the employees generally keep. Or if your store is run by dicks, sometimes they keep the ones that should be claimed. My store we usually waited, but you know, things happen. Here is actually a really weird little console, the Neo Geo Pocket Color. Similar to like a Game Gear, your Game Boy Color, it had a lot of like Sega and Neo Geo games. This one comes with Sonic the Hedgehog. There was mostly a lot of like the Neo Geo Fighters, the King of Fighters, and all that kind of stuff. It's a fun little console. You don't see it a lot. As we go on further, there's, well, a lot of games here, but the Tiger R-Zone stuff real quick. I have all my Game Gear stuff, some of them still in the box, the Atari Lynx as well, Mario Tennis for the Virtual Boy, a lot of the TurboGrafx, the Neo Geo games. And then down here is fun. These are all the game guides, all like the Brady games or some of the official players' guides that you got, some of the really old Nintendo stuff. It's just back in the day when they used to do these before the internet, you know, you needed the guide to get through all the games, and you'd get one of these and it had the cheats for any game you could want to play. Over here is the Injustice Special Edition thingy. There's a big statue in there for, I don't know, reasons. Obviously the statue is not out here anywhere. Also, speaking of things that take up too much space, I missed up here, but a Mario Kart Connect set that I have not actually set up. I just wanted it because it said Mario Kart. It's there, and it looks pretty on the shelf, and that's why I have it. Here is, well, I'll start up top. These are all, I'm sure a lot of you, if you're old enough to remember, McDonald's and Burger King, when Pokemon came out, had all the little Pokemon toys that came with the Happy Meals. I have a shit ton of them. There's actually more in a box somewhere. These are just the ones that are out. The rest are mostly duplicates anyway. A couple more pre-order bonuses, like the Harvest Moon pony, the little Dante's Inferno figure, this guy from Devil Summoner. We got the Ratchet and Clank thing there. All sorts of just extra bonuses. Inside the dresser, there's actually a ton more bonuses and art books and guides in there, as well as the Game Gear, PSP, DS, and R-Zone. And actually, all the rest of these drawers are all the controllers for every various console. You can't see in that shelf, but here, for example, all of these are controllers. There's a shit ton. It's a lot easier to keep them in here separated while I can get them in a grab instead of, you know, having them bundled in a box with cords everywhere. Pro tip, by the way, if you're going to do that, rubber band your cords so you don't have a giant tangled mess of crap. Because even in here, there's maybe 20 controllers in that drawer, and if they were all tangled together, it would take 1.5 years to get the one you want, and that's just a nightmare. Further down, I have like the Beatmania controller, the keyboard for the Dreamcast, the DJ Hero turntables, just a lot of the weirder stuff, and around here I also have the light guns for the Super Nintendo, Genesis, Dreamcast, Master System, all of those. Let's go the other way now. Alright, over here I have a bunch of posters. You probably remember a lot of them from the old videos in the old game room. I haven't hung them since I moved, but one thing I do want to mention, this here, the Space Ace side art from the old arcade cabinet. And the cool thing here is this is a limited edition print. They only did 30 of them, and it's actually signed by Don Bluth and the other guy whose name I really wish I remembered, but I do not. I feel bad about that. But yeah, I have one of 30 sets. I actually got this from my friends over at the Collected It website. They had an extra one and gave it to me, which was really cool as hell. And over here is probably one of my pride and joys, my arcade cabinet. I wanted an arcade cabinet forever. I finally got one. The game here is Black Tiger. I did a video a ways back. It's a Capcom side-scroller action game, similar to like your STNX or Ghost and Ghouls, any of those kind of things. It's a great game. It actually works really well. All the art is still in fairly good condition. This plastic piece could be cleaned, but other than that, everything works amazingly. I did have to restore the coin slots. They were not working when I got them. I rewired them. They actually work fine now. I had new keys made so all the doors actually open and lock like they're supposed to. There is the game over screen burn on the monitor, which happens with all the old CRTs. But other than that, it works great, and I love the thing. Next to that, you can see a gutted cabinet. This will be my main machine when I finally have the time and money to put into it. I've got an X-Arcade joystick coming for it, which is going to go here. It's the whole two-player layout. For the monitor, I'm going to do an old LCD, and then just dedicating a Raspberry Pi to actually run the arcade cabinet itself and the MAME emulator. That'll be a fun project. When I finish it, there will be a video up. But for now, it's just a gutted machine that sits here and looks pretty. And moving on! Alright, lastly, I have my giant wall of boxes. Bulbasaur, you all remember from the early episodes. And a little GamerCat thing here from webcomic. If you don't read it, you absolutely should. It's hysterical. Some of the boxes for various systems and games. Here are all the DS, 3DS, and the PS Vita boxes. As you can see, I have a lot of DSs. I'm up to, I believe, 4 3DSs, 3 of the original DS, and I don't even know how many DSIs. More than I need, I can say that, but they released umpteen special editions, and like I said before, I kind of need to have those. Steel Battalion is a huge game for the Xbox. By huge, I don't mean the game, I mean the damn box it comes in. You drive a big mech battlesuit, and the controller for this, which is what's in the box, is actually the control panel for a big giant mech suit. If I remember correctly, it has 114 different buttons, including all the directions on the joystick, that control the thing. Everything from an eject button to windshield wipers is in here. It is very fun, but a very hard, unforgiving, obnoxious game. Also, as you can see, the Guitar Heroes, the Rock Bands, Power Gig, Rocksmith. I have all the rhythm games, kind of like the Beatmanias and stuff. They're just... I've always had a thing for rhythm games. Used to do them in tournaments, so I have to buy them whenever they come out. And then over here, we have even more. Another Guitar Hero, but more importantly, the Ouya, the Oculus, Wii U, and then a whole bunch of really old consoles. All these boxes have the console in them. This is an original Commodore 64. This actually has not been opened. It's still wrapped, still has the price tag and a little serial number sticker. I found this in a basement at someone's house. They were going to throw it away. They had no use for it. I adopted it, and that was one of my favorite little finds. Down here is a ColecoVision still in the box. I got this dirt cheap at a garage sale, actually, with a bunch of games also in the box. Likewise, the Magnavox Odyssey here, someone online listed it with 20 games. They said it was old and used. I show up to find it complete in box in almost mint condition, as well as all the games. Was amazed at that find. Here we have the Sega Master System, or as it says on the box, the Sega Base System, because why be consistent? Sega Saturn, this is another one that was just given to me. I tend to luck out a lot in that. The box is a little crushed, but the console inside works great, and tucked inside there they had a couple games that I was kind of happy about when I found that one. The thing I'm standing on, by the way, is the DDR arcade pad I mentioned earlier. It's a big metal monstrosity, but it works well and saves me a bunch of money in buying those cheap plastic ones. Then up here, just to go through the rest of it real quick, a lot of these are systems you're all familiar with. The Xbox One, Wii, PS3, 360, etc. Again, the box for that Forza Special Edition Xbox One. We got a bunch more Rock Bands and Guitar Heroes. And then over here, one of the last little fun things is the Atari Lynx. It was similar to like the Game Gear, the Game Boy. It was a handheld. It was a much bigger system, but the battery life was better. The games on it looked much better than either of the other consoles. They had a lot of more obscure games too, like they had an exclusive Gauntlet title for this. A lot of the games that released on the NES actually released on this and looked almost as good as they did on the NES in comparison to the Game Boy, which was the monochromatic spinach-colored screen. So It was a great system, it just didn't do terribly well, which is why a lot of people haven't heard of it. Under that is the box for the Sega 32X. That was one of the things you saw on that giant monster console earlier. Very few games for it, was not widely known, didn't sell well, but it had some fun things. Doom looked amazing on it. It had an exclusive Knuckles game, which was really cool. It was worth picking up. Definitely worth picking up now if you can find it, but that's another one that might cost you a fortune if you do it. That's pretty much the end of the hardware. Last thing here is just a fun thing I like to show off. It's an old NES, but I actually got it signed by Brental Floss, Angry Video Game Nerd, and Mike Matei, DJ Cutman, and surprisingly, the guy that did the voice for Professor Oak in the old Pokemon cartoons. I was at a convention and just happened to have everyone sign it, so it's a fun little thing. Unfortunately, the console doesn't work, so it just sits here on the shelf, but it was fun nonetheless. Like I said, that's pretty much it for the hardware. I'm going to do a couple more of these videos just to run through some of the more fun games that people have asked me about, some of the rare stuff you might not have heard of. So stay tuned, and also in upcoming weeks, I'm going to get back to my usual schedule of just regular videos. I just want to do this for fun and kind of show you all what I have. So thanks for watching, and tune in next time. See ya! We'll be right back.